Hello, Robin. How are you?
Hey everyone. Hi, Jalisa. I am well. How are you, darling?
Good. We are live. Hold on. Can you hear that?
I can.
Is it an echo?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, what is it? What it is I have my YouTube playing on my computer too. I'm like making sure we went live on there. So it was like I was hearing an echo of what we were saying. So, all
That's
right,
okay.
y'all. All right, we are live. We are live for our midday mastery pre-class session. So this is something that we are doing with Evolution of She that is just going to be bringing value to our audience, to getting people engaged in how to build their businesses, different ways that they can build their businesses. And we're going to be having different experts that come on in their given field to kind of give us insight on how we can do that. Now, midday mastery is like a kind of like a lunch and learn. And so, with that, it is going to be usually around noontime. The midday mastery pre class sessions are just an introduction to the actual workshop in which we're going to do. So, today I have Robin Kelton from Mamapreneur Podcast. She is going to be teaching us some things about growing our podcast. So, a podcast, of course, is a great way, if not to make an additional income, but also to build a brand if you already have a personal brand, or if you're looking to build a personal brand to advance other people or to help other people elevate in their lives or businesses or whatever your niche might be. And so I have her on today. So, Robin, if you don't mind, give us a little introduction of who you are and kind of what you're up to these days.
Okay. Well, hello everyone. My name is Robin Kelton, born and raised in the Dallas area. Dallas, born and raised. And I am the hostess with the mostest of the Mamapreneur podcast. My show has been around a little over 3 years now, 67 episodes in. We not only talk about entrepreneurship, but I get to spotlight female business owners from all over the world. You heard that. All over the world, giving them a space for to get more growth and exposure for their brand on my platform. And so it has been an amazing ride, and the show is continuing to grow. Not only do we do the podcast, but we do webinars and such, just like the one I'll be teaching on Monday. I do webinars on things like branding, collaborations, you name it. I probably have a webinar for it. So I'm very glad to be here. Thank you, Jalisa.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you. Always a good time when we are together. So I went ahead and put Robin's information down here, her IG. If you want to connect with her on IG, it is going to be scrolling there for a little while. And so as we get started with 4 tips to grow our podcast, I know you've been doing this for quite some time. You've had over 60 episodes. So this is something that you know a good amount about.
Yeah.
So before we even get into these tips, can you tell me kind of what was some of the hardest things that you had to go through in order to really make your podcast what it is today?
I don't think there's much hard things.
Or challenging?
Challenging. And that's just, and seriously, I think because I've been consistent
Okay.
the entire 3+ years the show has been on. And I'm going to talk about that here in a moment. I have been consistent. So it hasn't been much of a challenge to me. I know others there may be, but for my process, I think because it was something that God called upon my life. And so when God calls things into your life, it kind of flows.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
That's
I can.
so
I can. I can attest
honestly.
to that for sure. And if it's not really something that you don't have that backing, then it just usually doesn't last. So for sure,
Absolutely.
totally get it. Okay, well, just wanted to really ask that question because there may be some people who haven't launched or maybe have been thinking about launching and maybe want to know like what do they have to look forward to. So thank you for sharing. Now, let's go ahead and get into it. So, share with us kind of these top secret tips you have for us to launch and grow our podcast.
Okay, so my four tips, they're gonna come in question form. So when you're working with me, my webinars, I'm gonna have you thinking, I'm gonna put you to work. It's gonna be not, yeah, you've heard me provide some tips. I know I'm fabulous, and you just want me to just give you all the fabulous tips and tricks of the trade. But my first tip slash question is going to be, when it comes to podcasting, if you look and do your research, per Spotify, there's over 5 million podcasts and counting
Wow.
on the air. So my first question slash tip is going to be, who are you talking to? What is your niche? There's a niche for, you can do a podcast literally on anything. So who are you talking to? So if you're listening right now, watching right now, kind of think of those things if you haven't gotten to that space. If you've gotten to that space, maybe, oh, I want to start a podcast, but what, again, who are we talking to? Who are you going to be talking to?
Hmm.
And when you decide that, stay there
Yep.
and work from there, because it starts there. That's
Yeah.
in business as a whole. What's your niche? All
Yeah.
right.
That's huge. I mean, if you're talking to everybody, you're talking to nobody.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
that's a true saying for sure.
And I'll give an example. So when this opportunity presented itself for me to start a podcast, I had to really sit and think on that. Okay, now who am I going to be talking to? Okay, again, everything kind of happened. It was one of those 3 a.m. wake up calls. God kind of wakes us up in the middle of the night, puts something on our mind. And if I didn't write it down, I would have forgot,
Yep.
kind of deal. So that's exactly how the name of the show came to pass, all that. The offer had already presented itself. And I, meanwhile, told that person, I don't know. Let me pray on that. I don't know what I talk about. Okay. In one of those wake ups, hence the Mompreneur podcast. Who we talk to? We talk to female business owners from all over the world. Who are we trying to, even the ones that are wanting to start a business? So aspiring entrepreneurs. I get feedback often about, hey, after watching your show, I've decided to take that next step to start my show, my business. So, who are you talking to? Is number one. Next, I just kind of talked about it. Over 5 million podcasts on the air. I'm going to say in counting, because there's more. Those that are watching and listening right now, your podcast will soon air on whichever outlet that you would have it air on. So, my question is, next tip, how are you going to stand out? You only have so many seconds to capture a person's attention, whether you're on Spotify, you're on Apple, Amazon Music, YouTube, Facebook, wherever, to grasp LinkedIn, and throw some other ones in there, to grasp a person's attention. So, what are you going to do to make yourself stand out? How authentic are you going to be to make someone be like, you know what? I was going to flip the channel, but I'm going to keep watching, or I'm going to keep listening.
Hmm.
Okay. So, I talk about this a lot I host monthly webinars for people who want to start their podcast or have existing ones. And that is a common question I have, because some people are nervous going into this. Man, there's probably a lot of women empowerment podcasts. But again, how are you? People will buy into you before they buy into whatever it is that you have going.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
how are you going to stand out in the
Yep.
crowd of 5 billion plus podcasts?
Yeah, you are your brand, and
Yeah.
people want to connect with people, not with podcasts.
Yeah. Because they can see Fugazi from a mile away, meaning fake, from a mile away.
That
Okay.
part.
All right. Tip number 3, or question in this case. Talked about it as well a minute ago. How consistent are you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Being an entrepreneur, being a podcaster, you have to be consistent. What that means is if you're having thought of how often you will air your show, or if you have an existing show and you've been kind of, I'll post one here and there, you're going to lose people.
Yep.
So you have to be consistent on when you're going to air your show. If you're live, if you're pre-recorded, how are you branding yourself? Are you just posting once a week? Are you posting daily? What are you posting? Is it content of substance? So on, so forth. So how consistent are you? My show, anyone who watches, or I'll tell you guys now, Mamapreneur podcast is on every second and fourth Thursday evenings, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. We are live. I've only think I've recorded maybe 2 pre-recorded. I think you was on one of them, pre-recorded. Other than that, I am live.
Yep.
Why? When you're gaining listeners, they are going to watch the next show. So what that next show looks like. Okay, oh, she's on. Jalisa is on first and third Mondays at 7 o'clock. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to be looking for Jalisa to air that next episode or be live first and third Mondays at 7 o'clock.
Right.
So
True.
being consistent with your posting, with when you post live or pre-recorded, with branding yourself. Are you being even consistent there?
Yep.
And it all comes together. But the more consistent you are, the better.
Oh yeah. And I want to just add to that is that even I mean it's a show at the end of the day. So just think of your favorite show. If your favorite show that comes on every Friday night doesn't show up, you're going to feel some type of way cuz
Exactly.
I know for a fact I'm a power and I'm a BMF. I'm that type of girl. So
Yeah.
when the show is rolling and it just doesn't come on, I'm like, what happened? Like
Uh-huh.
I was so invested here and I didn't even know that it was over. Like what happened? And
Hmm.
even The Shy, I'll just say The Shy is one of those shows. It just stopped in the middle of the season. I'm like, hello, we're waiting.
We were watching.
Right.
Yeah. I was like that with Martin growing up. I posted a little something in my group I saw that. I was like, let's see
Yes. I
whose
love
favorite
Martin.
show from the 90s
Hmm.
was, what. But
Yep.
Martin and Living Single,
Hmm.
Sunday nights at 7.
Yep.
If it didn't come on, it was a rerun that day.
Yeah.
Or it's not on at all. You're like, okay,
And it's like a loss. You really do feel like some sort of like loss that you did not get this thing that you're so used to seeing or hearing.
yeah.
I seen there's another podcast that I was subscribed to that I felt the same way, and I was a little disappointed because it was good. But you're right, consistency is that's the key. Even if you don't feel like it, even if it doesn't, it's just not one of those things you want to do today. But there's people
Hmm.
counting on you for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I really tell people in my webinars, whatever you decide route wise, if it's going to be pre recorded, if it's going to be live, stick with that.
Hmm.
Stick with that, those dates and times, however you got to work it out. Stick with that because, again, the more consistent you are, the more listeners you'll have or watchers, however you do your show, you'll have. And then they'll have other people, hey, you need to check out Jalisa
Right. Hmm.
first and third Mondays at 7 o'clock.
Yep.
She's going to be talking about this. And my last tip slash question, yes, you have a podcast and it's your show or you have co-host, whatever, but who are you collaborating with?
Mm, that's really good.
So today is a collaboration.
Yep.
June 3rd, when we'll be on June 3rd, that is a collaboration. Jalisa's been on my show. That's a collaboration. Jalisa's done a lunch and learn for my platform. That is a collaboration. Entrepreneurship, podcast, it all goes the same. You don't do business just by yourself. You get out there, you collaborate, you meet new people, you see how you could be of service to them, vice versa. Same goes for podcasting. Podcasting, you're marketing. You are the marketing team. So you got to get out there and get your name out there. Again, I just mentioned over 5 million shows airing. That's Spotify. We ain't even going to talk about Apple.
Right.
That's Spotify alone.
Mhm.
So, how are you cross promoting your show? How are you making yourself available to be a guest on other shows?
Mhm.
Vendor events, so on and so forth. Networking events. Again, how are you collaborating? Who are you collaborating with? Is it all about self? If it is, it ain't gonna last.
So true.
So that's a
So
little
true.
preview for Monday. So that's your
Yes.
sign to
That was
join us.
amazing. And it was good. And it's so spot on because a lot of this just boils down to really knowing why you're doing what you're doing,
Absolutely.
understanding the bigger picture of your purpose in doing it in the first place. Selflessness, consistency, clarity, all of these different things just kind of like feed into the overall reason as to why you're even podcasting in the first place. And it's really not for you, it's for other people, it's to help people, it's to serve others in some capacity. So these were excellent tips. And before we go, we only have a few minutes left. We had Jackie come on. I'm not sure if she left, but if you're still on, Jackie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
um,
Jackie.
so I do have we have one other viewer, but I can't see who that is. So hello, whoever it is. I can't see who you are, but
Hey,
thank you so much
welcome.
for joining us today. We're getting ready to wrap up, so if you catch this, if you are just catching the tail end, you can always replay it. Robin, you've given us some great tips, and I just have a few questions before we go out. So what would you say to the person who thinks they have to have all of the equipment, all of the like maybe pay for studio time? The person who's like, oh, I have to have all of the fancy microphones and everything before I can really just do my podcast.
Okay. KISS. Keep it simple, sweetie. If you
Mhm.
just start off, we are talking to you probably from our laptops.
Yep.
You don't have to have the big studio mic at the moment. You can, and that's great. I tell people in my webinars, I am focused on the audio. Can I hear you clearly?
Hmm.
Are you sounding like this? Can I hear you clearly? Whether it's a recorded show and it's just audio only, or if it's just a live like we're doing right now. Like I can hear and see Jalisa clearly. She can hear and see me clearly.
Hmm.
So my main thing is making sure A, you got some good stuff to say, and B, the audience can hear you or see you. The all the equipment and stuff comes later. You got a good laptop, great. Wi-Fi, great. Quiet room, great. No echoing. Acoustics, that's what I'm really big on. Because you may be having something great to say and you don't want no one to miss that.
Yep.
So the other stuff comes later.
Yeah, absolutely. I asked that question because I know some people who have this desire, they have this passion to get out here and start a podcast, but they're like so wrapped up in all of the pretty things. The because we see it so often on social media. So many people have these platforms and it looks aesthetic and it's so nice and they're spending all this money, but like
Mm-hmm.
anything that you do, you got to start small. You have to start somewhere. And
Absolutely.
if you wait until you have everything you need or want, you'll never move. You'll never make any action because you're always going to want something more than what you have. So, Thank you. Thank you for answering that. Coming from the expert herself, okay? This woman is out here doing this. She's consistent. She is 60 plus episodes in. She's been doing this for years, so she has the insight. Now, I'm just kind of like dibbling dabbling in podcasting. So I had to bring I had to bring somebody here who really knows what she's doing here. And that consistency piece is a huge part. And just for me as a person who has a podcast, I can say, to be honest, consistency is just not something that I've been. And sometimes I think we overwhelm ourselves and we do a lot too much at one time. But at the right time, that consistency can flow. And just like you said, you were called to this place. This is what you were supposed to be doing in this season, and so there was a grace there for you to be able to do it the way that you do, and you do it very well. So thank you so much for being on today and just sharing these tips with our audience. So for those of you who are interested in taking your podcast to the next level, if you are interested in learning the strategies behind launching your podcast, even if it comes down to just understanding a little bit more about how to monetize, what systems you may need, anything that is going to actually start getting you some movement in the process of starting or growing your podcast, me and Robin are going to be, excuse me, partnering together on a mamapreneur podcasting power hour for the June midday mastery session at Evolution of She. So I'm going to go ahead and pin the link here if you want to go ahead and register for that. It is at my website, jalisabuck.com/midday mastery. Again, we do midday masteries every first Monday of the month, usually around lunchtime. And she's going to be on here giving us some, not just tips, okay, y'all. She's going to give us some action on how to get started, how to make some movement. Because with all the knowledge in the world means nothing if you don't take action. So
Agreed.
that's what we are going to be doing on that Monday, the 3rd, right?
Yes.
The 3rd of June. Y'all, I'm all over the
Yes.
place with the dates here, but the 3rd of June, 12 o'clock, don't miss it. Register there. Robin, would you like to share anything else before we wrap up?
I'd say, even for my people who are nervous and scared to actually take that leap and step, join us on Monday. Get the tips of the trade for someone, believe it or not, who is nervous to do every episode. 67 episodes in, I am nervous every episode, but we get it done and people watch.
Do
So
it,
the
do it
same
scared.
can happen for you. And I've seen it from my webinars that I do, from where it was someone considering doing a podcast, from considering it to coming to the webinar, taking the steps like Jalisa just said, actually executing. We're going to execute in 2024,
Yes.
but to actually execute and put their show out there and to see their listeners grow and for other opportunities to present themselves. Not just you having the show, you can have the show with your existing brand and take your existing brand to the next level, but it's just starting. So, your podcast, your way. And I'm going to leave it at that. We'll see you Monday.
Come on, Robin. I love that. Well, thank you all for tuning in and taking a moment to just spend some time with us to learn and to advance and evolve and grow in whatever it is that you have been purposed to do. It was a pleasure, Robin. Thank you for being here today. And we'll see you
Having me.
guys on Monday if you're interested. Again, jalisabuck.com/midday mastery, and we'll see you there. Bye bye, y'all.